everybody, Mary Despe here. It's Tuesday, so you know what that means. We are doing a video for the Workforce Hawaii, Workforce Honolulu hybrid job fair that is happening, I can't believe it, next week, which is September 15th. So for many of you who've been following these videos, you know that we've been doing topics, or discussing topics rather, that might be helpful for your job search if you are attending next week's job fair. And even if you're not, we're sharing tips on how you can succeed in the interview, things to consider to up your chances for success with a future employer. So this week's video is going to talk about interviews. And so you might be thinking, wait, we talked about interviews last week, and we did, but as we talked about the STAR approach to interviews last week, this video is going to talk about that moment after the interview is completed and a future employer says, okay, what questions do you have for me? Before we get started, please subscribe below so you don't miss out on any videos that we do on this channel. As you know, these videos are free. We talk about anything career related from the job seeker point of view, as well as if you're building teams and hiring. We talk about interviews, resumes, sticky interview questions, say if you got fired from a job and how to address that. Do subscribe below so you don't miss out. When someone asks you, what questions do you have for me? Take a quick second. What do you normally ask? I'm a believer that you need to be asking questions that ask about the job, ask about their expectations, as well as things exist for you to succeed, not just now in the role, but also in the future. Of course, there are questions that are very specific, and I certainly don't want to downplay it, but like pay and benefits and things that help with stability. You definitely want to ask a variety of these questions that show not only that you're interested in how you'll be compensated, but that you're actually interested in the job and staying in that position to build a track record and to stay long term. Some of these questions might involve, like, what should this role know how to do after 30 days? Or this is a great question, however you ask it, because you'll hear from the employer what they think a successful employee would look like and what activities and behaviors they'll be doing in a certain amount of time. Certainly, employers will train people in their process. However, they will also build upon the skills that you bring to the table. So many employers are not expecting to spend tons of time training people in how to do something. Like, you have to have the aptitude, or at least show the aptitude that you can catch on and figure it out within a quick amount of time. So ways to ask this question, it really depends on the environment. I know for a lot of office-based roles, you might want to ask a variation of, what does the first 30 days look like for a person in this role? The first 60 days, the first 90 days, what does success look like? And hear what an employer has to say. It would be curious. Sometimes, it's not 90 days. Sometimes they're expecting you to pick things up much more quickly and function at a certain level sooner than that. And this is something that you do definitely want to know. Another good question to ask an employer would be, why is this position open? Is it because the company is growing? Is it, newly created position? Or is it to backfill someone who moved on to a different, organization, or maybe they were promoted to another role? Is it something where it sounds like this is a revolving door of people coming in and out? Or is the company thriving and they have, a new position that they've created because demand has been so great? In this climate, it's really common for a lot of employers to have a great need to hire people. I mean, it is a crazy pandemic out there. It's affected a lot of businesses that are really doing a great job and the best that they can to staff and to continue operations. So it is very common to find employers just wanting to get the right levels of staff on board. As a job seeker, you're in a position now, you actually have some leverage to ask, well, you know, is there some flexibility if you can't meet all of, you know, the scheduled shifts? Say you can meet 90% of them. You know, is there flexibility on the hiring person's end to work with you? These are things that you can ask, and it doesn't just stop at the scheduling. It can also talk about what the pay progression looks like. You might want to ask what pay looks like to start, and then in general, you know, when is it evaluated again? And if they are not doing that, you may just want to say, hey, you know, would you consider, you know, evaluating it after a certain amount of time? See where their thoughts are around this. The idea is that there's such a great need for people to come on board. You know, you do have some power to put your needs out there and see if they're willing to work with you. Last thing that I will say is, because we are in a pandemic, it's really important to ask an employer questions around COVID and how it's affected their business, how are they handling business operations and processes, and how that might affect you. So be sure to ask questions, you know, ranging from how has the pandemic affected your business? You know, what has that meant for you? So you can understand, like firsthand, you know, what kinds of shifts and things that they might have had to do to stay afloat. Also, you want to throw in questions that ask about how are they handling COVID, you know, exposures, like what is the policy, what has been the operations, because it's very important to understand what your safety will look like. So be sure to ask those questions at the interview. My recommendation is to pepper all of those kind of questions about pay and benefits, but also about, you know, what does success look like on the job? You know, what are the expectations? And of course, these questions about COVID. I would love to know what you all are asking a future employer, what has worked, you know, what are some of the interesting responses you've gotten. Feel free to message below. And of course, this Thursday, we will be talking on a Facebook Live about this topic. You know, I'll take your questions live if you have any, but certainly until then, guys, stay safe and we'll see you then. Take care.